What's going on, everybody? Gonna do a little update video here like I promised y'all. It took a while. It's been so hot. Not been able to get out and do one. We are on the riverbank here of the Little Pigeon River. So here's a little update video that I promised I would do on Dennis Martin. And it's hard to do this video because there's a lot of macabre things about the case. A lot of stuff I struggle with doing. I know there've been a lot of questions. Y'all have had a lot of questions and stuff asked me, so I was going to try to answer a few of those while we walk here. I won't be shaking the phone, try not to, nearly as bad as I did in that last video, but we'll get right with it here. I was debating on, I've got a lot of stories to tell. Now all these were passed down to me from the stuff with Dennis Martin, from hunting the Bigfoot, from a lot of other stories, just mountain folk and mountain laurel. But most of it's just been passed down to me. And how that happened was, I was raised by my aunts and uncles mostly. My mom was sick, dad was a truck driver. And they were a lot older people, and I listened a lot. I went hunting with my uncle a lot. He took me fox hunting and went with a lot of older men, and I just sit there and listen. And for y'all who don't know anything about it, when you go fox hunting, you don't really tramp through the woods with a gun. You build a fire and you sit around the fire and you just talk. And you wait and you listen on the dogs to run and chase the fox. That's basically it. So I listened to a lot of their stories. A lot of my aunts, uncles, grandmother's stories. A lot of them was scary horror stories. Stuff that you wouldn't normally tell a kid these days. You know how people are nowadays. Times have changed. Look at Saturday morning cartoons. But I have several stories I'm debating on either telling those or doing the Dennis Martin update. Got a story where my aunt confronted the devil in her front yard years ago. It almost cost her life. She had a heart attack. I remember listening to that story as a kid. She never knew I listened. I heard her tell it 2 or 3 different times. There's another story. An old lady who lived up in what we call the Green Hollow. Of course, folks back then claimed that she was a witch. I got all these stories to tell. I'll try to put them on here. Dennis Martin. Well, I would sit and listen to my uncle and these other men that would go on these hunts. And then their dads would go on these hunts for Dennis Martin. I mean, not for Dennis Martin, but for these things that took Dennis Martin. They would go and they would be rewarded by bringing these bodies in. They would have a meet-up place, and they would get paid for every body they brought in. Now, I talked to my sister since I done that last video. Kindly asked her some questions. She's a lot older than I am. And I asked her a few questions, and she told me when I called these things people, that's where I was wrong. She told me there was nothing remotely human about these things. She told me a story once when she was a little girl that the neighbors had caught one peeping in the window of a of their child. They had knew he had been doing it. They'd been trying to catch it for a while. She never saw it. They made her go inside, but she said that she could hear this thing screaming. And she said it was the most ungodly scream that you'd ever heard. She says it still wakes her up today with nightmares. She's nearly 70 years old today. Not in good health. But she remembers a lot of this stuff. She heard a lot of it too. But anyway, people ask me questions. The number one question I got was, do I know David Politis, or have I got my video to him, or has he seen my video? No, I don't know him. I have no idea if he has seen my video. I don't have any way of getting my video to him or in contact with him, but I would be more than glad to talk to him if he wanted to talk. More than happy. The hard part is a lot of people want to know about Dennis Martin, and they want to know about the body. Well, nothing's really been confirmed about the body. There's been a lot of rumors, and that's all this is just a rumor. But some people claim that they did find some of his remains, and they didn't want to tell the family. They didn't want the family to view these remains, that they was actually pretty gruesome. These people were cannibals, and what they found, they destroyed when they destroyed the people they went into the park to exterminate. The Green Berets. Did the Martin family ever know this happened to their child? Yes. I think the guy's name, McCarter. I think Dwight McCarter, I think he told the family what happened. Now, I can't be 100% sure on that. I know that he knows about these things and stuff, him being in the park most of his life, and I've heard comments that he's made on TV and stuff. So yeah, how much he told them, I don't know. You know, I'm sure he probably didn't tell them they ever found a body or anything like that. And like I say, that's just rumor anyway. But that was another question that I got. Another question was, where did these things come from? And since I had talked to my sister, she let me know that there were two different types of these feral men, these feral people. There was the kind that looked like a man, woman. And then there was another kind that was bigger, hairier, meaner. Some people claim that they had fangs. I don't know. I've not never witnessed any of these myself, but that's what I got from her. There was actually, I think those would probably fall more in line with the Bigfoot type. So these things would go over into Townsend, Tennessee. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but you can look at it on Google Earth and find it and see how close it lies to the park. And when Townsend very first started getting its first grocery store and restaurant and stuff, it was real convenient for them to get into these dumpsters and find food. And I think that's kind of what started a lot of it. You know, they would come in and they'd take these people's cats and dogs and pigs and whatever they could find. And by the way, Dennis Martin was not the first child to go missing in the Smokies. He was the most publicized child because he was from Knoxville. And you might as well have been from Atlanta, Georgia, and New York City, because that's how much difference there is between Knoxville and Townsend, Tennessee, or Cades Cove, or Sevier County. I mean, it may be 25-30 miles separated, but it's a world of difference. So that's why it was made such a big deal. But yeah, there was a few that went missing way back in the 30s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. There have been more missing than what's been told. So there jumped something big. But the Dennis Martin, he really shined the light on it. So that's when the park officials decided they had to do something about this. They can't have people going into the park. This can't happen again. This cannot happen again. So the Green Berets come in and they did what they did. And when I said in my last video, a lot of people, a lot of us locals know about this. I guess what I mean by that is a lot of people that I grew up with knew. Everybody in my world knew, you know. In my short world that I was related to, they knew, because people in my family were involved in these hunts. No, not everybody on the street, walking down the street of Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, knew what was going on. So that's another thing somebody asked me, you know, if everybody knew that this was happening, then, you know, how did the Martin family not know? So that's another question I got asked. But no, it's just everyone that was in my world, everyone that I knew when I was growing up. Some of the neighbors' kids, you know, their parents was in on this too. Everybody that lived in that little holler, you know, they was all privy to this information that went on, and probably the next hollow over, they had no idea. So no, not everyone knew. Everyone couldn't know, because this was such an illegal thing that they were doing. You couldn't tell everybody. So, and by the way, these videos aren't for everybody to listen to. If this upsets you, or you're part of the Martin family and you don't already know this information, then don't listen to it. Don't play it any further than this. If this disturbs you, you don't believe it or whatever, then I'm just telling you the things that I was told as I was growing up. They had no reason to lie. They had no reason to make this stuff up. They talked about hunting these things a lot more than just with what happened with Dennis Martin. You know, he was just a small part of the conversation. But I just passed on what was told to me when I was growing up, sitting around the fire, listening, when they would describe it. And they would describe how the park wanted to come into this area but was afraid to, because they had heard the stories of these beasts living in these woods, and they wanted them cleared out before they moved into the area. So they did. They cleared them out. But one got brave one day, and they're stealthy. That's what I've been told. You could be standing right beside one in the park, and unless you smelled it and stunk real bad, you wouldn't have no idea you was standing there beside it. So I'm sure Dennis Martin probably never seen this thing coming. And from what I've been told, it probably snapped his neck the moment that it's picked him up. Now that could be wrong. He could have took him back very alive at that moment. I know there was another family that seen one of these things running. They could describe what they saw, but it was kept out of the news. It was kept out of the media. So that right there should tell you something. I think the family's name was the Cades family. And that's odd, because they hold a big key to this information. But it was never published. None of that was ever told about. they try to keep it quiet, so it's kept quiet. I think the Martin family found out about it and confronted him. They kindly played it down. But this has been kept quiet around here all these years. And I can remember my grandfather telling me not to ever talk about this. That it would cause trouble one day for me. That there's a lot of money that changes hands around here in this county. Depends on these tourists to come spend their money. And when you get a story out there like this that scares them, the most visited part in the country, well, then they're going to go somewhere else. And then somebody's going to lose some money, and then somebody's in trouble. So he always told me not to repeat none of this or tell what I was told, and I hadn't never told anything about it. And one day I got on the internet and I saw that all these people were talking about this. And I thought it was strange, you know, all these people talking, and here I am sitting and been told what I know. So I thought, well, I'm just going to put that video out there in case something ever happens to me. There'll be something left behind. And maybe somebody will know one day. You know, the right people play that video. I had no idea it was going to get as many views as it has got. But anyway, I know a lot of people said that this was false and it was a lie and not a lick of truth in it, no proof. No, there's no proof. The government does not leave proof laying around. There's no proof. Like I say, this is just stories that was told. And you can believe it. You don't have to believe it. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. I'm just the messenger here telling you the messages that I was told when I was young. And there's a lot more of them. I'll tell a few more here in a couple of days. Some of the ones I had told you there about and stuff. Some real interesting stuff, some scary stuff, some stuff children don't need to listen to or hear. I know when I was young, it bothered me for a long time hearing some of the stuff that I was told, because this just ain't your bump in the night stuff. A lot of it's very horrifying. A very strange place in the world is these mountains and these hills. Very ancient, very strange. A lot of weird stuff goes on in this part of the world. So, if you have any more questions about Dennis Martin, or I didn't cover something, you know, just leave me a comment and we'll go back over this. We'll brush back over it again, and I'll find out some more. I'll talk to my sister more and more. She knows a whole lot more about this than I do. So, until then, I guess I'll be seeing y'all later. Good night.